Hello and welcome. You're tuned into Market Cafe right here on ET Now. I'm Shriti Sharma and with me is Kanishka, and brand new week, and it looks like exciting week for the markets, Kanishka. But firstly, let's start with how did the US market pan out on Friday?
Absolutely, Srishti. Very interesting week for the US markets. Now, Wall Street is set for a busy week, and it's potentially a market-moving week also. The stock futures moved higher Sunday evening across the board as investors are bracing for a widely expected interest rate cut by the Federal Reserve and a wave of big tech earnings as well. Now, futures tied to the Dow, S&P 500 as well as the Nasdaq, they were all high last evening. Now, expectations are really high that the Fed will slash rate when it meets on October 29th. That is later this week. This is especially after last week's cooler than expected inflation data that we saw. Now, according to the CME Fed Watch tool, over 96% of investors now anticipate a deep cut to 3.75% to 4%. That reflects a growing confidence in a softer policy stance. Meanwhile, all eyes are going to be on the magnificent seven. Now, the Alphabet, Amazon, Apple, Meta Platforms and Microsoft, they're all set to unveil their third quarter earnings this week. So all eyes over there. Strong results here could reinforce optimism around corporate resilience despite slowing growth. Now, adding to the big week's catalyst, Donald Trump and China's President Xi Jinping, they're expected to meet in South Korea on Thursday. That's aiming to cool ongoing trade tensions. Now, remember, this comes after a bullish week for markets. All three major indices closed at record highs on Friday. The Dow surged past the 47,000 mark, whereas the Dow surge, as I said, past the 47,000 mark. The S&P 500 that added about 0.8%, whereas the Nasdaq composite that saw gains of more than 1%. On the other hand, with rate cuts, tech earnings and global diplomacy, all are in play going to be this week, and hence it's going to be a very interesting week for the markets, Srishti. But how are things on the crude front?
Quite interesting, Kanishka, because over the weekend we had that whole deal anticipation between US as well as China. So two big superpowers are maybe looking forward to have a negotiation on table with respect to the trade deals, and definitely on the back of that there's a bit of an optimism when it comes to the crude oil prices. As of now, Brent crude is trading and hovering around that $65 per barrel mark, and definitely good gains throughout the last particular week is what we have already seen, and as of now as well we are getting to see good gains on the crude oil front. So that's about the green tick that we are getting to see on the crude oil prices.
All right, so that's about US market moves and commodity moves that we are tracking this morning. But let's also tell you some global news that we are tracking early this morning. And the big news, the big headline today is that the US and China have reached a very substantial framework for a potential trade deal. That's the word coming from US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. Now, so that's the word coming from the Treasury Secretary. Now, this agreement, as they said, aims to avert 100% US tariff on Chinese goods that is set to become effective on November 1st. And this may even include a deferral of China's rare earth export controls. In fact, President Trump and Xi, as I said, they are expected to meet later this week on Thursday to finalize the details, and that would mark a pivotal step towards easing tensions between the world's two largest economies. So let's watch out for that meeting and also listen into the comment that's coming from Secretary Scott Bessent.
We just finished 2 days of negotiations, and we've created a framework for the two leaders to discuss on Thursday in Korea. I believe we've reached a very substantial framework that will avoid that and allow us to discuss many other things with the Chinese. I think we will be able to discuss them helping us get this terrible fentanyl crisis under control. I think we are going to be able to discuss substantial soybean and ag purchases for our American farmers. I think we are going to be able to discuss more balanced trade. We will get some kind of a deferral on the rare earth export controls that the Chinese had discussed.
All right, but Donald Trump kicked off his Asia tour in Kuala Lumpur with flurry of diplomacy that we have already seen, and along with that he also signaled that there could be some deals with respect to the critical minerals agreement with Malaysia and Thailand, while Trump pledged a free and open Indo-Pacific. Now, the ASEAN summit, which added East Timor as its 11th member, comes ahead of Trump's high-stakes meeting with China's Xi later this particular week. Let's go across and listen into that.
I think we should be able to make some pretty good deals for both countries, and I'm going to leave that a little bit to Jameson and Scott and Marco in different ways. Marco, less on the economic stuff. You could do it very well, but I don't think you'll have to. But I think we'll be able to do some pretty good deals. We've been speaking, and I think we'll end up having a very good relationship.
All right, so those are the comments that we're tracking from Trump. But my colleague Sumita Kariz is also here to take us through all the details about Trump's Asia tour and what's on the agenda for the rest of his trip. And of course, all eyes will be on his meeting with the Chinese president. So let's go across and listen in to all the details that we must know before this meeting on Thursday.
This is a key visit of President Trump, who's on a 5-day tour of Southeast Asia amidst a U.S. shutdown that continues to go on and carry on. Remember, this visit is aimed at highlighting the United States' sway in Southeast Asia, and this is essentially to counter China. So United States sway, what do I mean by that? So whether it's in terms of deals, trade ties, and of course in conflicts, and how the United States can essentially mediate as far as conflicts in this region is concerned, that is what this visit is aimed at. So definitely tariff and access to rare earth materials is going to be high on the agenda of Donald Trump, who's expected to meet with premiers of Japan, China and South Korea. But let's understand the importance of this region, ASEAN region, for Donald Trump. Remember, this region has been marred by Trump's tariff policies tariffs range from 10 to 40%. This region is a crucial supply chain for U.S. companies that are moving out of China, which is why it's important to U.S. Overall, the ASEAN bloc accounted for $312 billion worth of goods exports to the United States in 2024, and which is why United States is an important geography for this region. But let's look at some of the key developments that have happened. Well, key trade deals that have been struck with Malaysia, Cambodia, Thailand have decided to keep tariffs at 19% for most of the imports from these three countries. Then a minerals deal has been struck with Thailand and Malaysia. Agreement has also preferential market access for industrial goods and agri imports from the United States is also being signed. A peace deal has been signed on border conflict between Thailand and Cambodia. And of course, President Trump also met with Brazilian President Lula da Silva, even as Brazil also faces elevated tariffs of 50%. But the highlight of this visit is going to be Trump's meeting with Xi Jinping on 30th October. Given the fact that both sides are now looking at dialing down tensions, a sweeping trade deal, however, is unlikely. Now, remember, China is pressing the United States to reduce tariffs on Chinese products, and the United States wants China to ease export controls, to give market access for its agricultural goods. And of course, the issue of fentanyl is also going to be addressed. So it remains to be seen what kind of concessions both the sides can essentially give to each other.
All right, thank you so much, Sumita, for getting us all those details. But moving on to another news flow, wherein Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressing the 47th ASEAN summit virtually called ASEAN the main pillar of India's Act East policy and declared 2026 as the ASEAN-India Year of Maritime Cooperation. Modi said India and ASEAN are not just trade but cultural partners, and they're definitely united together. Now, he emphasized cooperation in maritime security, blue economy, green energy and digital inclusion, and ASEAN, of course, definitely will be taking part in that. So let's go across and listen into him.
चाहे वो डिजिटल इंक्लूजन हो या फिर मौजूदा वैश्विक चुनौतियों के बीच फूड सिक्योरिटी और रिजिलियंट सप्लाई चेन सुनिश्चित करना, भारत इन प्राथमिकताओं का पूर्ण समर्थन करता है और इस दिशा में साथ आगे बढ़ने के लिए प्रतिबद्ध है। आसियान कम्युनिटी विजन 2045 और विकसित भारत 2047 का लक्ष्य पूरी मानवता के लिए एक उज्जवल भविष्य का निर्माण करेगा। आप सभी के साथ भारत कंधे से कंधा मिलाकर इस दिशा में काम करने के लिए प्रतिबद्ध है.
All right, so those are the comments coming from Prime Minister Narendra Modi, but we also spoke with a whole host of experts to understand the significance of this ASEAN summit. Let's take a look at what they had to say.
The tariff that they have with South Korea, they have 15% tariff currently. Japan is 10%. China is 30%, but with a threat to take it to 155%, right? So I think under that backdrop, one has to look at while India's, there's no meeting with anybody from India, but, the entire global economy is so well integrated and connected that with the Chinese president, some of the key things, which are likely to come up is now with the two sanctions against the two Russian companies, would China stop buying, the Russian crude oil? I think that's the agenda with China as well, not just with India, right? Also, U.S. wants China to commit to imports of U.S. soybeans, right? There has been a de-dollarization threat from BRICS as well as China. That is what I'm told is likely to come up for discussions, although no agenda is formally available as of now. I think President Trump would also do some smart marketing for Boeing planes, to be bought by China, And I think the single most important agenda is going to be the rare earth availability from China to US and elsewhere in the world.
The positions have been pushed far apart enough that there's room for some signals of compromise without really sacrificing the red lines. And I think the red lines here are that, the U.S. wants to de-risk or potentially in the extreme decouple from China. I think there's, very little chance of decoupling quickly or achieving decoupling in any kind of reasonable horizon. So therefore, I think what we should expect is a kind of, a signal of compromise, maybe some relaxation of technology and semiconductor and, other kinds of threatened export control software and so forth, and some kind of improvement on the rare earths front. But no real, no real resolution, no real improvement in the direction of travel in the relationship, which is tense, which is rivalrous.
Are going to talk, and on the table is going to be the rare earth policy, is going to be the policy of the United States of exports of technology and technological implementation, in other words, particularly chips, is going to be the issue of soybeans, is going to be the issue of liberating one of the key political opponents of Trump and of China in Hong Kong, Jimmy Lai. There's going to be a lot of interesting things on the table, and I'm curious to see what of that is going to be signed off and how long it will last. If I was going to negotiate with Trump, I would go in with the absolute certainty that whatever we agree is not at all certain. That's why this naivete that this is going to solve everything, the man is very consistent. Okay, I'm not for one moment saying anything bad about Trump. All I'm saying is that's what he does. He promises, sits down, delivers, and then undelivers. Look, with Canada, which they have had a major agreement, okay, it was torn up because of an advertisement of President Reagan saying something not positive about tariffs. The whole agreement, watch my fingers, was turned off and thrown away. So presumably at the 10th of November, when the agreement was apparently was going to be renegotiated, okay, Trump will have to start all over again. Actually, Trump says he's not going to negotiate with Canada anymore.
All right, moving on, and ahead of this week's U.S. Fed meet, data reveals that lower than expected rise in the U.S. inflation, where the consumer price index for September showed a 0.3% increase on the month, putting the annual inflation rate at 3%. Meanwhile, the core CPI saw a 0.2% monthly gain and an annual rate also at 3%.
Absolutely, yeah. But moving on to some more updates coming from the ASEAN summit. Now, External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar is set to meet U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio on the sidelines of the summit in Malaysia. While no major breakthrough is expected, talks will come power, trade, energy and regional security. Sources have indicated to ET Now that trade negotiations are progressing smoothly with hopes of addressing Section 232 tariff issues soon. Sumita is back with us to take us through the details.
External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar is all set to meet with Marco Rubio today in Malaysia on the sidelines of the ASEAN summit. This, remember, is happening even as both the sides are negotiating a bilateral trade agreement. However, no major breakthrough on that part is expected. Now, this is also coming in after Marco Rubio just hours earlier stated that ties with India are deep, historic and important. He also stated that relationship with Pakistan, which has been an irritant in US-India ties, that's not going to define how India-US ties progress. Now, but let's understand the backdrop of this meeting to get more context. Like I said, bilateral trade agreement talks are currently going on and the government is hopeful of reaching a fall deadline. In fact, no new issues are emerging as hurdles in trade negotiations is what sources have told ET Now. Now, sources have also told ET Now that India and the United States are closing to reaching a deal given the fact that engagements are going on well. Now, that is one aspect of the backdrop. The second aspect is, of course, about the H-1B visa fee increase that was not read very, positively by tech companies here in India. Of course, the other key issue is going to be concerns about India's energy trade with Russia. We did hear Marco Rubio say that India already has expressed an interest in diversification of the oil portfolio and who they buy from. And of course, Indian side has also stated earlier, a couple of days back, that they have a headroom to buy an additional of $12 to $15 billion of energy purchase from the United States. So, these are going to be the key factors as far as talks between both the sides are concerned. We do know that Sergio Gore was here in India early October. He met with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Then Commerce Secretary Rajesh Agarwal was in the United States mid-October to sort of have talks with his US counterparts, even as both the sides have not declared an official round of talks and when that is going to happen.
Well, thank you so much, Sumita, for getting us all those details. But time now to slip into a very short break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more on the other side.
Let the thrill begin.
The all-new Hyundai Venue. Bookings.
Now, it's largely a sea of green coming for the Asia-Pacific markets. First up, let's start with Japan's Nikkei, which has actually breached the 50,000 mark for the first time this morning. This as investors are cheering the progress on US-China trade talks and strong momentum on the Wall Street as well. Now, it's up 1,100 points as we speak, up nearly 2.5% at that 50,433 odd level. So that's how the Japanese markets are faring. Nikkei up nearly more than 1,100 points. Next up, we have ASX 200, the Australian index, which is also trading 0.5% higher at that 9,063 odd level. So that's how the Australian index is faring. Apart from that, let's also take a look at how China's Shanghai index is faring. Now, that's also up nearly 0.5%. That's at 3,097 odd level is where it is at. That's the Chinese index for you. Now, remember, China's industrial profits, they have surged 21.6% in September. That's the biggest jump in nearly 2 years. So that's the latest data update that we are getting from China. And hence, the stock is up nearly 0.7% right now. The index is up 0.7% right now. Apart from that, Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index, that's also trading in the green, up nearly 0.9% at that 26,390 odd level. So yes, that's how the markets are faring. In fact, the Kospi Index, South Korea's Kospi Index, that's also trading in the green. In fact, it's leading. It's one of the indices that's leading the gains on the Asia Pacific front. It's up 2% at that 4,020 odd level. Now, if we talk about the Nifty, Nifty did snap its 6-day gaining streak on Friday. It fell 150 points from the day's high and closed below the 25,800 mark. But for today, we are expecting a very positive start for the index, tracking the Wall Street as well as the Asian cues that we are tracking this morning. So yes, 106 points uptick is what the Nifty implied is suggesting. So let's see how that pans out. Srishti, a very positive day coming for the Asia Pacific front.
Indeed, Kanishka, let's watch out for that. Yes, the last week was very exciting for the Indian markets because we did breach that 26,000 mark for the very first time when it comes to Nifty 50, and definitely even Nifty Bank was seen to be hitting record high levels. But a bit of a U-turn for Nifty 50 is what we have seen as well. So let me take it across to my colleague Snehi for the market wrap.
Well, yes, Friday's trading session saw an absolutely tepid day of trade, which started off to be on a decent footing. It fizzled out entirely by the end. We closed lower by 0.4%, around the 25,800 mark, slightly below that. But that has been the case for the Nifty because it starts to gain steam and then fizzles out. It's something that we've seen for the last couple of trading sessions. Similar moves for Sensex, slightly more under pressure was the Nifty Bank. The broader end of the market also did not do all that much. But on the flip side, you had names like Hindalco up 4% on Friday, and it was the metal stocks that were top sectoral gainer. Followed by that, you had Bharti Airtel, ICICI Bank, Shriram Finance, BEL. All of these stocks closed in the green. On the flip side, increased pressure on the Nifty from names like Cipla, down 3.5% despite signing a deal with Eli Lilly. HUL, after posting a decent set of numbers on the back of brokerage reactions coming in and management commentary settling in, a 3.3% cut on that stock. Ultratech, Apollo Hospitals, Adani Ports, all of these stocks were the main laggards when it comes to Nifty 50 group of stocks. But yes, Nifty Metal, the top sectoral gainer through and through. Hindalco, Hindustan Copper, Nalco, Vedanta, all of them did exceedingly well. This was followed by Realty and Energy. On the flip side, FMCG stocks, of course, led by Colgate and HUL, were the top sectoral losers, followed by PSU banks, pharma, Nifty Auto, Media and IT, slightly on the flat line. So 0.2% cut is something we've seen on IT stocks too. But it was stock-specific action for sectors, for stocks like Shipping Corporation, Sammaan Capital, about 7 to 8% uptick on both of those stocks. Defense stocks did well on the back of that 79,000 crore deal being signed and acquisitions for the defense space. So that was also a positive on that side. On the flip side, all the sectors that used crude as a raw material, like the CET, your paints, all of them were landing in Friday's trade. All in all, it was a completely subdued day of trade coming in, but nonetheless, the Nifty managed to eke out gains for about 0.5% for the course of the week, so closing in the positive territory. But well, yes, absolutely subdued day of trade coming in on Friday for the market.
All right, thanks, Snehi, for taking us through that entire roundup. But like Snehi pointed out, the defense sector, that continues to be in focus on the back of those big announcements, especially with the DSE clearing procurement proposals. So yes, let's go across and listen into what market veterans Manish Chokhani, Atul Suri and Hiren Ved have to say about India's defense space. Let's take a look.
I think the triad of putting defense, automobile industry in particular, and universities together is really how most technologies have developed in the world, because really auto use is really half of most countries' manufacturing GDP. Like if you had not built, say, this Akash Tir domestically, with 4 or 5 S-400s, you won't have been able to even counter a Pakistan. Imagine what would happen if the other larger neighbor were to do something with you. So clearly it is again this technology, defense, auto, universities, all has to come together. And it is happening.
Defense is one area which I thought did correct initially, but you'll find a lot of defense stock recovering. And then you can go and see that where is the news coming, where are government orders coming, how they execute, etc. Only time will tell. But you realize that this is a mega theme. And this theme is not only playing out in India. Defense actually stocks, you look at German markets, you'll find a lot of defense stocks are doing phenomenal work out there. A lot of the European markets actually are being driven by defense stocks, because the world has a new reality that each one has to provide for themselves.
Defense is, in my view, is a 10-15 year story. It's it will go through its own ebbs and flows, but I think it is here to stay, in my view, and it will continue to be a significant investment theme even going forward. I think that it's defense and aerospace and shipbuilding. If you put all of this together, my sense is that there is a lot of money yet to be made.
All right, moving on then, and let's put the spotlight on India's consumption story. That seems to be turning a fresh page as early indicators suggest a revival, with analysts optimistic about a broader demand uptick under the GST 2.0 regime. Let's go across and listen into what market veterans have to say on the consumption segment.
we are preferring consumer discretionary businesses more than the consumer staples businesses. But by and large, I must say that the consumer consumption theme in India is pretty expensive. See, whenever you enter a phase of narrative-based investing, that narrative, it tends to become expensive. And I think consumer also has been a dominant theme, a narrative-driven story, and that's why we are seeing some underperformance in that space.
But on the consumption, I don't find stocks really attractive. Even when I, let's say, want to go and buy an auto company, can I look at an obvious choice where I can double my money in the next 2 years? It is damn difficult for me to be able to identify and find those kind of bets where I can double my money in the next 2-3 years. Category as a whole is growing, but it is not coming maybe to the entire benefit is not coming maybe to the larger companies.
We are probably at a cusp where in the second half of the year, we should see a rebound in earnings led by growth in consumption. So my sense is that this combination of fiscal and monetary easing should help to get growth back. I think consumption growth was really limping. I'm hoping at least the early feedback is quite positive when you look at auto sales numbers, etc.
All right, so that's about the consumption space, but India is rapidly expanding its AI capabilities through government initiatives, a strong startup ecosystem and global partnerships as well. But how are market honchos Madhukela and Ramesh Tamani, they are looking at this newly emerged space, and are they betting big on India's AI play? Let's take a look.
We should look at companies which are really, and this is not, I'm not talking from a 12-month perspective, but maybe from a slightly longer-term perspective, the companies which are really going to benefit out of this AI usage. Because that is something which we all of us are experiencing, that it is coming, right? Even in my own office, I'm experiencing that how AI is actually making us more and more efficient. So we have to look for companies which will benefit disproportionately, and they will not have to pass on the benefit immediately. So this will be one segment which I think could come out as a big winner.
My feeling by interacting with promoters at AGMs or meeting them or going to analyst meet is there's a underlying optimism about business conditions in India. So I think there are lots of opportunities in India. Maybe not AI specific, though AI will, of course, change the world and will change America for sure. And India will have a lot of use cases for AI. But in terms of actually rolling out products for AI, we might be behind the curve.
All right, but with this, viewers, it's once again time now to slip into a very short break. Don't go anywhere. As we come right back, we're going to be telling you which are the stocks that you should be watching out for in today's trading session. Stay tuned.
Let the thrill begin.
The all-new Hyundai Venue. Bookings open.
Well, yes, good morning. Hoodco can be in focus in today's trading session. Our company has signed a MOU with Jawaharlal Nehru Port Authority to explore rupees 5,000 crore infrastructure and port projecting finance at the Jawaharlal Nehru Port. Apart from this, Puravankara can be in focus, where company's wholly owned subsidiary Starworth Infrastructure and Construction Limited has received a LOA from SBR Builders for a residential project worth of rupees 212 crore. Ircon International can be in focus, where company is in a joint venture with Finolex J Power System has been awarded a turnkey contract worth rupees approximately 169 crore by the Maharashtra State Electricity Transmission Commission. On the back of order win, NCC can be in focus, where company has received an LOI from the Central Coalfield Limited, and the value of the contract is 6,829 crore. EPAC Prefab can be in focus, where company has received a purchase order of approximately 130 crore from the Avada Ventures Private Limited. Compton tariffs can be in focus, where company has secured a landmark solar rooftop order of rupees 445 crore across over 40,000 homes, and this order marks the company's largest project in the Crompton's portfolio. Retail can be in focus, where Bihar Education Project Council has cancelled rupees 209.79 crore PM Shri work order due to unavoidable reasons. Vitran Engineering can be in focus, where company has received rupees 354 crore EPC letter of award from the Illumi Energy MS Solar One Private Limited for 100 megawatt AC solar project in the Maharashtra, and the execution to be completed within 12 months. Reliance Industry can be in focus, where the company has clarified that the company is evaluating the impact of new EU, UK and US restriction on the Russian oil. And apart from this, Reliance and Meta has announced a 855 crore AI partnership. And lastly, Bharat Rasayan can be in focus, where board has approved stock split 1:2, and company has also approved the bonus issue of 1:1. So back of this, Bharat Rasayan can be in focus.
All right, thank you so much, Rabindra, for getting us all those details. Well, let's move on and let's also tell you which are the other counters that are going to be in focus today. First up, let's talk about Kryzac. The company has come out with a positive news flow of a stake acquisition, wherein one of their arm acquires majority stake in UK-based StudiousPlanet.com. That marks the foray into the Latin America as a new source market, their first B2C venture with Aquarius Capital as exclusive advisor. Other than that, Hindalco will be in focus too on the back of a positive news flow, wherein Novelis plant has restarted, Oswego plant, hot mill to restart by the end of December 2025, 4 to 6 weeks of ramp up after the fire incident on September 16. E-clerks from the IT pack will be in focus too, as the board has given a nod for 300 crores of a buyback up to 4,500 rupees a piece. Buyback will be of over 6 lakh shares via the tender offer. PTC Industry will be in focus as well, as GTRE DRDO has come out with an order strategic defense order for a single crystal turbine blades, and we will be watching out for that. From the auto space, Ola Electric, interesting development over there, as there was a board meet and the board has approved a fundraise plan of 1,500 crores. That's interesting to see, because there's no plan as such, or rather no information given as such for which this fundraise is done. But recently the company did come out with the plans to shift from mobility to clean energy space. So that is interesting in the times ahead. Vari Energies, a positive news flow, a new order win, as the company has bagged orders for supply of 700 megawatts of solar module. And lastly, Concor will be in focus as well, as they have in pack with Adani Cement for the rail-based bulk container rigs, and that's indeed positive for Concor. So let's watch out for this counter.
Absolutely, Srishti. Lots of stocks to watch out for today, and for that we have a very interesting conversations lined up on the show next. Now to discuss the LIC link that the Adani link that LIC has denied, we'll be joined by Sriram Subramanian, the founder and MD at InGovern, alongside JN Gupta, who's the MD at SES, to discuss what the whole controversy is all about and what must investors eye out for. Other than that, at 8:45 a.m. today, we'll be discussing commodity trends with Parthiv Jonsa of Anand Rathi, who's a metal analyst, and all the action, especially in the precious metal space, and what is it that we need to watch out for. Other than that, at 9:20 a.m., we'll be joined by Vikas Khemani, founder and CIO at Carnelian Asset Management, to discuss the market trends and the cues to watch out for the rest of the year. And of course, it's the earnings season, and we have lots of management conversations lined up for you. We'll be joined by Ashok We'll be joined by the management of Zen Technologies today, post their earnings. It's been a mixed quarter for them, and let's see how that pans out. Other than that, we'll be joined by Vishal Thakkar, the Deputy CFO at Anupam Rasayan, to see how their earnings were and the outlook going forward. And after that, we'll be joined by Sanjay Namdev Salunke, who's the CMD at Jaro Institute. The first time their earnings will be coming out after their IPO, very recently listed IPO. So let's see what they have to say about the outlook going forward. So yes, lots of interesting conversations lined up for you on the market coming up next. But on that note, we'll take a very short break. Be right back with more news and updates on the other side.
Let me take it across to my colleague Samir for more details. Samir.
The Supreme Court is likely to take up the matter or hear the petition filed by the telecom company Vodafone Idea on Monday, October 27th. Vodafone Idea has earlier filed a petition in the Supreme Court challenging the additional AGR dues demand raised by the Department of Telecom. Now, DOT has raised an additional AGR dues of rupees 9,450 crore rupees for the financial year up to 2016-2017. And the petition filed by Vodafone Idea, they have mentioned that this should be quashed and the entire amount should be reconciliated, or the reassessment should be done for the financial year up to 2016-2017. In addition to this, in the filing by the Vodafone Idea, they have mentioned that the new demand that has been raised, it overlaps the dues which has either already been settled or it contravenes the earlier Supreme Court ruling as well. So based on these grounds, the fresh petition has been filed by the Vodafone Idea in the Supreme Court. In addition to this, we have already seen that this particular case was there in the Supreme Court and it has been deferred multiple times. But it has already been indicated by the Supreme Court that the central government should come up with a clear stand regarding the telecom company. Now, the central government is having a 49% stake in Vodafone Idea, and it is very crucial or important to know that what the central government is having kind of a direction or a stand when it comes to this telecom company. And it is also very important to know that based on the rulings or the direction from the Supreme Court, it will actually decide the future financial stability of the debt-ridden telecom company, Vodafone Idea.
All right, so that's about Vodafone Idea. But another stock to watch out for today is going to be Kotak Mahindra Bank, which has reported an inline set of Q2 earnings. Profit and net interest income, they have met estimates, whereas margin, that seems to have contracted a little bit. Net interest income, like I said, is in line, PAT 2 in line, but net interest margins, they have seemed to miss. NII is standing at 7,311 crore rupees. This compares to 7,020 crore rupees. It's an uptick of about 4.1% on a year-on-year basis. PAT 2 has seen, PAT is standing at 3,253 crore rupees. That's gone down about 2.5%. Gross NPAs, they are standing at 1.39%, largely flat compared to 1.48%. So there's been a little bit of a downtick over there as well. So of course, it has improved about 9 basis points on a sequential basis. So that's the update as far as the gross NPAs are concerned. But moving on, asset quality, that has remained stable. That's the update that we have got from Kotak Mahindra Bank. But let's listen into the management commentary coming in and what they have to say about the outlook going forward for the lender.
The bank performance got impacted mainly because of the net interest margin compression, largely due to the repo rate, because 70% of the bank book is linked to the repo rate. And clearly, the repo rate affects the whole portfolio at the time at which the repo cut is announced. However, the response to the repo rate through the cut in the deposit rate comes over a period of time. While the NIM has contracted this quarter marginally, here onward, as the deposits gets repriced at a lower rate, the NIM will start showing upward trend. The second part on the result, which the bank results gets impacted, is the credit cost. It is largely on account of the unsecured business of personal loan, MFI and credit card. I think as far as MFI, credit card and personal loan is concerned, the credit cost has peaked in Q1, which was at 0.93. Now we are seeing gradual decline also in the credit cost. And as we go forward for next 2 quarters, we will see further reduction in the credit cost. So with gradual reduction in credit cost and gradual increase in the net interest margin, one would see the uptake in the bank's performance going forward.
All right, moving on to another news flow, wherein the Washington Post has reported that Indian officials allegedly pushed a proposal to channel about $3.9 billion in life insurance corporation investments toward Adani Group firms, including financing a $585 million Adani Port bond issue. Now, LIC has firmly denied the claims, calling them false and baseless, insisting all investments follow due diligence and independent board policies. And as of September, LIC's total exposure to Adani companies stand at roughly 4% of its equity portfolio. Let me take it across to Snehi for more details on this one.
Well, yes, so a stock to watch out for in today's trade is going to be LIC and Adani Group of stocks as well, after the Washington Post last week reported that Indian officials have drafted and allegedly pushed through a proposal to steer about $3.9 billion in the month of May towards the Adani Group of companies, and LIC has single-handedly financed about $585 million of Adani Port's bond issuance that they had come out with to repay the existing debt in the company. The Washington Post also alleged that Indian authorities wanted to direct taxpayer money to help the Adani Group of companies, and LIC had a role to play over here. And over the weekend, we've had a firm clarification from LIC wherein they have denied all of this, and they say that the allegations are false, baseless and far from the truth. They also say that all investments are made with integrity and due diligence. Investments that are taken by LIC, they are independent and they are as per the board approved policy. So they are also saying that there have not been any such documents that have been created by LIC that talks about a roadmap to helping the Adani Group of companies. So that is a clarification coming from them. Let's just understand what LIC's investment is in Adani Group companies. All of this as of September 25, that's September 2025 for Adani Ports and SEZ. LIC now holds 7.73% stake. Remember, they used to hold 8.14% in June, and that has been trimmed down. Adani Enterprises 4.16%, Adani Green 1.3%. For Adani Energy, they hold about 3.5% stake in the company. Adani Total is 6%, and Ambuja Cements, here they hold 7.3% equity stake, and ACC 9.9%, the highest holding coming in this name. Other than this, if you also take a look at what LIC's top investments are, it's not even the Adani Group of stocks, it's actually ITC, wherein they hold 15.86% stake. For SBI, they hold 9.59%. Reliance, they hold about 7% stake in the company. HDFC Bank about 5%. And the overall exposure to the overall Adani Group portfolio is just 4%. So that's a clarification coming in from LIC, and on the back of that, these stocks are going to be in focus today.
Thank you so much, Snehi, for getting us all those details. But from the pharma pack, Dr. Reddy's will have a reaction on the back of its earnings, and this time around it's been a miss all across the board, and especially the margins. But in terms of the commentary, that is not looking at bad, because the major culprit for this quarter's weak numbers was the contribution coming in from Revlimid, though the company has highlighted that going ahead in Q3, the contribution from one of their blockbuster drugs, Revlimid, will be even lower. But the street will now be banking on some of the newer product opportunities. One of them will definitely be the biosimilar opportunities, and the other one will be the semaglutide opportunity, especially in the Canadian market. And a positive commentary coming in on both of these fronts, wherein firstly, with respect to semaglutide, they expect that the launch in India is set to happen post-expiry in March 2026. And with respect to Canada, they expect a feedback on the application from Canadian health authorities in the next few weeks. This is going to be one of the key opportunities for Dr. Reddy's, as highlighted by Elara as well, where they are saying that this could be a bigger opportunity of more than $100 million of sale with respect to Canada alone. And along with that, with respect to the biosimilar opportunities, that is Aptacept, has potential of 100 million plus opportunity for Dr. Reddy's. So that is something that the street will be looking out forward to. The North America sales will definitely have an hit, but the India sales is expected to grow by 12 to 13% as highlighted by the management. Elara does maintain its buy rating with a target price of 1,588 rupees, but in the near term they have made some cuts with respect to their EPS estimates. While for Novama, they do expect that the Q3 is set to be a weak margin quarter for Dr. Reddy's. Q2 margin of 25% is owing to the cut in the R&D spends. Going forward, the management has highlighted a 25% of margins overall, but including other income, and the margins and the gross margins in the PSAI segment is also expected to improve going ahead. And Novama does maintain its buy rating with a target price slashed marginally to 1,475 rupees. So a weaker set, but the commentary is not looking that bad when it comes to Dr. Reddy's. All right, but with this, let's also listen into the management itself of Dr. Reddy's.
We are toward the end of the contract. We had a 4 years contract. and we are toward the end of it. We have actually one more quarter to go, and this is a natural decline of this product, and most of the decline that we saw in North America is related to this product. Now, like I said, we have one more quarter to go, so post that we will not have that arrangement anymore. So the quarter that we are in, which is the next quarter we'll report, will be the last one of that, and it will be less.
All right, then lots of stocks to watch out for today, Srishti. But on that note, we're completely timed out in this edition of Market Cafe. Srishti and I will take your leave, but don't go anywhere. The market is coming up next.